Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland is in Oshawa today discussing the upcoming federal budget. We'll listen in live now.
A core principle for those of us who regulate the financial system. Today, we are being vigilant, monitoring the situation closely, talking with our allies, and taking a Team Canada approach here at home. Canadians can and should be confident that at a time of global uncertainty, there is no better place to be than Canada. So that's the good news. But I know that everyone here is also familiar with the not so good news. Inflation has fallen in Canada for 7 months in a row, and it's on track to continue coming down. The Bank of Canada forecasts that inflation will fall to 3% in the middle of this year and 2.6% by the end of the year. But today, inflation, which was 5.9% in January, is still too high. Canadians feel its pinch every day at the grocery store and at the end of the month when it's time to pay the rent. To fight inflation around the world, central banks have raised interest rates in what has been the fastest and most synchronized monetary policy tightening since the 1980s. This steep increase in interest rates is causing another kind of economic pain for many Canadians. Many people's mortgage payments are higher, and small businesses need to pay more for their lines of credit. As I've traveled across the country over the past few weeks doing pre-budget consultations, I've met with Canadians who are doing well and with Canadians who are really struggling. But even in my conversations with the Canadians who tell me they're doing just fine or even prospering, I've been struck by one common theme, and it's made me really proud to be Canadian. When I've asked them how they're doing, people who are doing well have said, "I'm fine actually. I got a raise and I have a fixed rate mortgage." Or, "I'm great. Business is booming and my biggest problem is that we can't find enough workers." But then, without fail, comes the next sentence. "I'm worried about some of my friends and neighbors. Their rent is going up and their wages aren't. They're struggling just to get by." And you know what? That's at the heart of what makes us Canadian. Even if we're okay, we worry about our neighbors. We worry about our friends. We believe in taking care of each other. Notre gouvernement l'a compris.
Our government understood this, and that is why, over the course of this past year, we spared no effort to strengthen our social safety net. It is in place today to assist those Canadians who most need it: our children, our seniors, and the lowest paid citizens. To further improve our social safety net, we provided a top-up to the Canada Workers' Benefit and those performing essential work, but who are not well paid. We also offer the Canada Child Benefit. Parents now have access to learning and daycare services for their children that are affordable. Old age security pension and guaranteed income for our seniors is also available. Since December, we've also offered a benefit to cover dental care for more than 200,000 children. And these are children whose parents could not afford dental care. And another essential point is that our most important benefits are all indexed to inflation. This social safety net is there for everyone.
And in the weeks to come, for those Canadians who feel the bite of rising prices the most acutely, for our most vulnerable friends and neighbors, our government will deliver additional targeted inflation relief. This support will be narrowly focused and fiscally responsible. The truth is, we can't fully compensate every single Canadian for all of the effects of inflation or for elevated interest rates. To do so would only make inflation worse and force rates higher for longer. Canadians are smart. Everyone here is smart. So I know you understand that. What Canadians want right now is for inflation to come down and for interest rates to fall. And that is one of our primary goals in this year's budget, not to pour fuel on the fire of inflation. So in our budget, we will exercise fiscal restraint. Higher interest rates are having their intended impact here in Canada and around the world. The global economy has slowed down, and the Canadian economy has slowed down. That means government revenues are lower. And this slowdown comes after an extraordinary 3 years when the federal government provided 8 out of every $10 to support Canadians and the Canadian economy during the pandemic. Our ability to spend is not infinite. Canada has the lowest deficit and the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7 and a AAA credit rating. Our country has a proud tradition of fiscal responsibility, and we're determined to maintain it. Canada is, after all, a country of peace, order, and good government. And today, more than ever, that is something to be proud of and to rely on.
En faisant preuve de rigueur budgétaire et en ne
In
jetant
exercising
l'huile sur le feu
budgetary
d'inflation aujourd'hui,
strictness and not throwing fuel on the inflation fire, we ensure that we have the possibility to invest responsibly. We have the ability to invest in Canadians and the Canadian economy for many years to come. This is the same that we have done for the last 7 years. This is because we know that investing in Canadians also means investing in our economy. We are investing in housing because our economy is built by people, and people need housing. To address the labor shortage that many of our communities and businesses are facing, we are investing in measures that will allow Canadian workers to acquire the competencies and skills that they need and to get them to the point where they need to be to find good jobs. We also have taken in a record number of qualified workers in Canada, and we will be taking in even more in the years to come.
We're making childcare more affordable for families from coast to coast to coast, meaning more mothers no longer have to choose between their family and their career. Investments in housing, in skills, in immigration, in childcare. These are not just social policies, they're economic policies too. And healthcare is another one of these policies. So in our budget, we will deliver the comprehensive healthcare plan that the Prime Minister announced last month. With an investment of $198 billion in public health care over the next 10 years, we will ensure that Canadians can rely on a world-class, publicly funded healthcare system, one that is deserving of its place at the heart of what it means to be Canadian. And we will ensure that a strong and effective public healthcare system can continue to care for and nurture a strong and healthy Canadian workforce. That's what Canadians deserve. That's what Canadian working people deserve. Universal and high-quality healthcare is rightly a priority for every single Canadian. It is also a national competitive advantage. This is a significant investment and a necessary one. And it will be one of two significant and necessary investments that we will make in our budget. We will invest in strengthening Canada's universal public health care system, and, Matt, we will invest in building Canada's clean economy. And I'm counting on everyone here to build it. Truly. Because once we have wrestled inflation to the ground, Canada must navigate two fundamental shifts in the global economy. First, in what is the most significant economic transformation since the Industrial Revolution, our friends and partners around the world, chief among them, the United States, are investing heavily to build clean economies and the net zero industries of tomorrow. At the same time, Putin and the pandemic have cruelly revealed to the world's democracies the risks of economic reliance on dictatorships. As a result, our allies are moving quickly to friendshore their economies and build their critical supply chains through democracies like Canada's. Together, these two fundamental shifts represent a huge economic opportunity for all of us, for Canada and for Canadian workers, like the great people, the great electricians and apprentice electricians here with me today. From clean energy to clean technology, to battery manufacturing, to electric vehicles, we can and we are becoming a global leader in the growing clean economy, because Canadian workers and Canadian businesses have the necessary expertise, and because Canada produces what the world needs. From energy to critical minerals, Canadian workers can be the ones to provide our allies with the resources they need. And Canadian families and Canadian communities can reap the benefits. Today, and in the years to come, Canada will either capitalize on this historic moment, on this historic opportunity which is before us, or we'll be left behind as the world's democracies build the clean economy of the 21st century. Now, to be left behind would mean less investment in our communities and fewer jobs for an entire generation of Canadians. That's why the plan we will release next Tuesday will include a serious investment in Canadians, in good jobs, in more vibrant communities, and in a new era of economic prosperity that we will build together. We will build a Canadian economy that is more sustainable, more secure, and more affordable. We can create hundreds of thousands of great middle-class jobs, of great middle-class careers in communities big and small, from coast to coast to coast. And that is exactly what we will do. And I'm counting on you, Susan, to train the people we're going to need to have those great careers and do those great jobs, okay? Okay, and I want a lot of them to be women. Okay. Like you guys, yeah. These are great, satisfying, well-paid careers, and our government is going to invest to be sure Canada has plenty of them, an abundance of them. Now, there are some, I know, who are advocating for a different, more reckless approach to government policy, for sweeping, unfunded tax cuts for the wealthy, for a dismantling of the guardrails that make Canada a reliable and desirable place to do business, for cuts to the EI and the pensions that Canadians have been contributing to for their entire working lives. Other countries have tried this reckless approach, and they have been brutally punished by the markets. Our budget will be a serious plan at an important moment in the history of our country and at a challenging time for the world economy. A responsible fiscal plan, supporting Canadians, strengthening public health care, building and investing in Canada's clean economy. A clean economy that is good for working people, good for business, good for Indigenous communities, good for the environment, and which makes life more affordable for Canadians. Where everyone can get the quality health care they need, and where everyone can roll up their sleeves and earn a good living with a good middle-class job. Where everyone can share in the remarkable opportunities that Canada provides. All of us have the incredible good fortune to live in the greatest country in the world. And I have never been more excited about the future of our country than I am right now. Because Canada is filled with people who can do, who want to do really big things. And I'm here with a lot of them today. And it's because of people like the ones here today, the people you see here beside me, the welcoming, diverse, hardworking, really, really smart and talented people who call our country home, that the 21st century will surely belong to Canada. Thank you very much.
We'll now take questions from media. One question, one follow-up, and I'll just ask that you give your name and outlet before asking the question. Une question, monsieur.
Déborah Saint-Victor, Radio-Canada. Madame la ministre, des organismes d'aide internationale craignent des compressions.
Some international organizations are fearing compressions in humanitarian aid with your next budget.
Que le budget international passe de 8
And they fear that the budget will go from 8 billion to 10 by now and 2025. Do you think that's realistic?
Canada est une leader au niveau international.
And Canada is an international
On
leader.
a investi notre gouvernement, nous tous.
We have
avons
invested
investi
in our government. We have all invested a lot in international development around the world.
Dans les jeunes filles et les
We've
femmes.
invested particularly in young women and girls with our feminist policy.
Très nécessaire,
These
très important.
investments are very
Pas
necessary
seulement
and
pour
important.
les jeunes filles et les femmes qu'on
They're
aide,
important not just for the young women and girls
parce que
that we are
le
helping,
monde
but they're
dans
necessary
lequel
for everyone.
tous les gens,
This is
tous les
because
femmes,
they
tous les
create a
jeunes filles
world
ont des
where
opportunités.
everyone,
C'est un
every
monde plus
young person,
sécuritaire.
every woman, every young girl
On
has opportunity. It makes
comprend
it a
notre
safer world.
responsabilité.
We understand
Et on
our
va
responsibility,
continuer d'aider
and we will
les autres.
continue
En
to
même
help
temps,
others.
comme j'ai dit dans mon discours,
At the same time,
nous
as I mentioned in my
nous trouvons
speech,
dans un moment dans lequel on a besoin
we find ourselves right
d'une
now at a
approche
time where we need to
responsable
take
du côté
a
fiscal.
responsible approach,
Alors,
a responsible fiscal
dans
approach.
cet enjeu et tous les autres, on
So
va
given
prendre
this
une
issue
approche
and all
équilibrée,
others, we will take a
faire
balanced
les
approach.
investissements nécessaires,
We will make the necessary
même temps,
investments,
prendre une approche
but at the same time,
responsable du
we
côté
will
fiscal.
take a fiscally responsible approach.
Merci pour la réponse. Des ONG disent que c'est plus difficile d'obtenir du financement
NGOs
pour
are
des
saying that
projets
it's more difficult to get
qui visent à faire
funding for
avancer les droits des
projects
femmes à l'étranger.
that will move forward
Pouvez-vous
rights of
nous
women
dire pour
abroad.
rassurer que vous n'êtes pas en train d'abandonner votre
What might you
politique
say
féministe
to
à
reassure
l'étranger.
people that you're not
Notre
abandoning
politique
your
féministe
foreign
est très
policy,
importante
your
pour
feminist
notre
foreign
gouvernement,
policy?
ici
Our
au
feminist
Canada
foreign
et
policy is
autour
very
du
important for our government here in Canada and around the world.
Minister Freeland, Kevin Gallagher, CTV National News. Canadian industry is already ringing the alarm to an extent about the lack of competitiveness that many investments will have in terms of the green economy, net zero, given this huge Inflation Reduction Act south of the border. It's pretty difficult to imagine how you can be fiscally prudent while compete with what's considered one of the largest historic investments in those sort of green investments. So what is Canada's strategy to be fiscally prudent, as you say, but also create that competitive environment for Canadian industry that you're not losing investment dollars to the United States for these sort of projects?
You know, Kevin, investments in our economic capacity are fiscally responsible. And failure to make the necessary investments in our economic capacity and in our economic future, that is irresponsible and that is reckless. Canada right now is really at a crucial crossroads. This is a moment when the great economies of the world have decided to embrace the clean economy, the net zero economy. And as you said, they are investing really, really heavily. And so we have a choice. Either we also can invest aggressively in the clean economy of the 21st century in a smart, focused Canadian way, or we can be left behind. And not making those investments is also a choice, and a choice I believe would be really irresponsible, really reckless. And it would be reckless for the people who are here today, the people who are counting on us, on our government, to make the necessary investments so that they can do the work that they are being trained for, that they are really excited to be doing. So, you know, as I said in my remarks, we are absolutely committed to making further investments in the clean economy. Those investments are going to be smart, they are going to be strategic, and they are going to mean that Canada continues to be the very best place to invest in the world. Because I believe in the people here, and I know that my job is to create a world, to create a Canada in which they have a lot of opportunities to do their job.
We're also expecting targeted programs to help Canadians that are struggling with the rising cost of living. Should those people who are struggling with that inflationary pressure expect new programs, new targeted measures? Because you've already introduced things like the GST rebate, you mentioned dental care, you mentioned daycare, but are there new programs that we should be expecting that will target some of those inflationary pressures for people?
So I'm not here to deliver the budget, although this would be a great place to do it, full of really smart people. And we could learn some skills too. So I'm not gonna go into specifics, but I recognize, our government recognizes that there are some really vulnerable people in Canada who are really being squeezed by inflation. And we know that we have a responsibility to give them some support. But our approach will be fiscally responsible. We believe that it is important to be compassionate and to be fiscally responsible at the same time. That's a balance that we have to strike, and that's what we're going to do.
Good afternoon, Minister Freeland. Trevor Owens with Global National. Thank you for taking my question. Putin and Xi are meeting today in Russia. Do you feel this signals that China will be more openly supporting the Russian war effort?
Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine is an illegal and barbaric act. The people responsible for that invasion are war criminals. Everyone in the world has a responsibility to be very clear about that and to speak out about that. And I would say all the countries in the world have an absolutely clear interest in Putin's war failing, because Putin's invasion of Ukraine is the strongest challenge in a generation to the rules-based international order. And that rules-based international order is something all the countries of the world depend on. So I'm not going to anticipate what President Xi will say or do in Moscow, but China and China's leadership needs to understand the stakes here and needs to understand that Vladimir Putin is on the wrong side of history.
And we've been listening to Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland talking about the upcoming budget. She said she's heard from Canadians that they're worried that that wages are not keeping up with the cost of living. And she says Canada will be investing in a clean economy. And of course, the budget will be delivered on March 28th, which is next Tuesday.